The day we brought him to the hospital, I remember kneeling beside him and gently touching his head before the surgery began. Even though he was in pain, his tail was still wagging. It was such a strange and heartbreaking moment, because most animals tremble when they are frightened or injured, yet this dog seemed to trust us completely. I whispered to him softly that everything would be alright, that once the surgery was finished the doctors would close his wounds and the pain would slowly fade away. He looked at me quietly, his eyes tired but calm, and for a moment I felt as if he understood every word. When we first found him, he could barely move. Every attempt to stand ended with him collapsing onto the ground again. His body was weak, thin, and trembling as if even the smallest movement demanded all the strength he had left. At first we thought he might simply be exhausted or starving, but when we tried to help him stand, it became clear something far more serious had happened. His back legs would not support him properly, and whenever he tried to walk, his body would suddenly tilt and he would fall again, crying out softly in pain each time his injured side hit the ground. Watching him struggle like that was unbearable. We knew immediately he needed help, so we carefully lifted him and rushed him to the nearest veterinary clinic. During the examination the doctor gently pressed along his spine and pelvis, and although the dog whimpered quietly, he never tried to bite or resist. It was as if he understood we were trying to help him. After taking several x-rays, the veterinarian looked at us with a serious expression and explained what had happened. The dog had suffered a severe pelvic fracture, most likely caused by being hit by a car or struck violently. Without surgery, the bones would heal incorrectly, and there was a very high chance he would never be able to walk again. Hearing those words was difficult, but at least there was still hope. Surgery could repair the damage, though recovery would be long and uncertain. The doctor explained that because the injury involved muscles, blood vessels, and bone structure, the healing process would take patience and careful treatment. The dog was also extremely thin and weak, which meant his body would have to work even harder to recover. Before the operation could begin, the medical team focused on stabilizing him. His body temperature was low, his muscles were fragile, and his immune system was not strong. Despite all this, there was something remarkable about his attitude. He stayed calm the entire time, quietly watching every movement around him. When the nurses prepared him for surgery, he wagged his tail again, and one of the assistants even laughed softly and said it looked like he was comforting us instead of the other way around. The surgery itself lasted several hours. Repairing a fractured pelvis is extremely delicate work. The bones must be carefully repositioned and secured, and the surrounding muscles and blood vessels must be protected so that circulation can return properly. When the veterinarian finally walked out of the operating room, everyone in the hallway fell silent, waiting for the news. After what felt like an eternity, he smiled slightly and told us the surgery had been successful. In that moment, the tension that had been building all day suddenly disappeared, and we finally allowed ourselves to breathe again. But surgery was only the first step. The doctor reminded us that recovery would take time, possibly months, and there would be many difficult days ahead. During the first week after the operation, the dog was still weak and confused. Because of the bandages and protective collar, he kept shaking his head, sometimes even knocking the bandages loose. Occasionally he tried to stand too early and would lose his balance, falling again. Every time that happened, our hearts sank with worry, but gradually the medication began to ease his pain and his breathing became calmer. His injured leg remained swollen for a while, something the veterinarian explained was a normal reaction after such a serious operation. When bones, muscles, and blood vessels are damaged, circulation needs time to recover. Gravity and pressure from standing or lying down can also cause temporary swelling. The important thing was to keep him warm, well-fed, and comfortable so his body could focus entirely on healing. After about 20 days, we began helping him try to stand again. Rehabilitation was slow and sometimes frustrating. At first he refused to put weight on his injured leg, using only the stronger ones to push himself up. His body trembled with every attempt, and often he would collapse again after only a step or two. But what amazed us most was his determination. No matter how many times he fell, he always tried again. It was as if some instinct deep inside him refused to accept defeat. One day I asked the veterinarian how long recovery might take. The doctor thought for a moment and said it could be 1 month, or maybe 3. It depended on how well the dog's body adapted and how strong his will was to move again. That answer stayed with me, because it reminded me that medicine could only do part of the work. The rest had to come from the dog himself. Slowly, small improvements began to appear. One afternoon he managed to stand a little longer than usual. At first I thought it was just another brief attempt, but this time he stayed upright and even took a careful step forward. Then another. His movements were slow and unsteady, but they were real steps. Watching him move across the floor like that made my chest tighten with emotion. After everything he had endured, seeing him walk even a few steps felt like witnessing a miracle. 3 months passed, and day by day his strength returned. The swelling disappeared, his muscles grew stronger, and his steps became steadier. Then one morning he surprised us all. Instead of walking slowly as usual, he suddenly pushed forward and ran a few short steps across the yard. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't graceful, but he was running. For a moment everyone stood there in disbelief before cheering and laughing like children. The dog who once couldn't even stand was now moving freely again. We decided to name him Xena, a name that represented strength and resilience. It felt right, because his journey was more than just physical recovery. He had shown us what determination truly looked like. Even when his body was broken and every movement caused pain, he never stopped trying to stand again. Today when I watch him walking confidently through the yard, it's hard to believe how far he has come. Sometimes his steps are still careful, a quiet reminder of everything he endured, but he moves with confidence and curiosity. He runs, he plays, and he enjoys the simple freedom of being alive. Xena didn't just recover from an injury. He reminded all of us that healing is not always sudden. Sometimes it happens slowly, through patience, care, and an unwavering desire to keep moving forward. Every step he takes now feels like a quiet victory, proof that even when life knocks you down again and again, standing up one more time can change everything. And whenever someone asks about him, I always say the same thing. Xena is not just a dog who survived a difficult surgery. He is a reminder that courage can exist even in the most fragile body, and that sometimes the greatest miracles are simply the result of refusing to give up.